that's nobody else wants to jump in.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I'll just start with demoing the, I haven't actually tried this. Oh wait, I need to share my screen. That might help.
There we go.
All right.
Best time to try demos is live.
What's that?
The best time to try demos is always live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, this is production, and I have not tried it yet.
Oh, all right.
So we'll see how that goes. So basically, we're just trying to see if a user who's first visiting the site, whether or not they have a token in local storage or not. And if they don't, then we give them an opportunity to create one and create a new list. If they do, then it just takes them straight to the screen that we're all used to.
Okay.
So here is just opening the app. There's no storage or no token. So create new token. And there we are shown the list. And now local storage shows a user token of Joy Dodo Buzzy.
That's a good one.
From there, they can add items. So the code we worked with was, first we pulled in Andrew's script, which is mostly words at the top. And we pulled that, I'll just go through the app first. So that button that you see, if a user doesn't have a token, sorry, I'll slow down here. So we check if the user has a token or not. And if they don't have a token, they're shown that button, which has a create token applied to it. Otherwise, they get the route we're used to seeing. That use token, we created a hook here based on Steve's suggestion. And that token, use token, is here. So here we pulled in use state from React, created a constant for user token, just because it's less likely to go wrong if somebody mistypes something. It's just always there. It's kind of like a kind of type checking, I guess. And we pulled in Andrew's script here. And then we used use state to get a user token and a function to change it. And here's where we're sort of telling it what type of item we want. We're telling use state hook what type of item we want. Here is just string, basically. And then when here's our, here we actually handle getting a new token. So here we call the token, set it into local storage, and then set that in state. So now the state knows about it, and it can change the view. And I think that's everything. It walks through all the code we did. Any questions? Anything I'm missing?
I was just going to say that I was really impressed that you and Sarah jumped on creating that hook. I just kind of mentioned it in passing, like, you know, later on, if you're going to develop this further, you might want to try a hook. And you two just jumped on that, tackled it, and that was really cool to see.
Yeah, it was definitely fun.
Sarah, anything that you'd add to that? Anything interesting or that you learned through the course of the week?
I just learned about local storage. I guess that was something new to me. So just learning how to navigate in the developers tool and stuff, like to see if it was there and all that. So
yeah, it's the first time I've worked with local storage too.
Nice. All right, cool. Very good.
Yeah, and if you, I was going to say too, you had popped open the console to look at local storage, just typing in local storage. There's an application tab as well on the right side. And if you look at that, you're just noodling around learning more about local storage. On that tab, you can see all of the values that a site might save to local storage.
Okay.
As well as other types of storage. So there's like IndexedDB
Yeah.
and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Nice. Very good. All right. Elise and Miles.
Hey, sorry,
Hey.
I'm just getting the code up. For some reason, I accidentally clicked out of it.
No worries. Yep.
Okay.
I can hear my neighbors. I don't know if you all can hear. Okay. All right, cool. And you all were working on the add an item story, is that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it's taking so long. Sorry, guys.
No worries. Yeah. I always forget that you can run this stuff from right inside VS Code. While I switch it over to the terminal. But,
Mm.
I haven't actually used my terminal in a really long time, to be honest.
huh, that's cool.
Okay, so here's the shopping list, and when you click add item, the form pops up
Mm-hmm.
where you can type in an item. You can select how soon you need it, and then when you do submit it, both the name and the schedule are now saving properly to the database, whereas prior to getting feedback, it wasn't. But that is what we did, and I can just walk you through the code where we created an add item form component. Just set up the state with the name, next purchase, last purchase is null, and then the user token after our meeting with the other team on Wednesday, which was super helpful, by the way. We created some handle changes. So once you actually select the fields, that's what's happening. It's submitted to the database, of course. And then I added this to reset the field so the user knows it's actually like working. And then I created the form, Miles and I created with just the basic labels of name and schedule and last purchase date.
Mm-hmm.
And that is pretty much it.
Cool. One thing I might suggest is that when you're saving to the database, maybe don't save all of state, because there could be you could imagine a future where you might need other things to be in state. And so, so you might want to pull just the fields out that are needed for the item and just save those things into the database.
Okay, so I don't need like last purchase.
Well, actually, that's fine. All what you're storing in state in the component, but then when you go to add it, yeah. So on line 30, line 30, it's adding all of state. So,
okay.
State's often used for like UI changes or something that are kind of ephemeral or whatever. So
right.
If you wanted to have like an error message or something like that, it might be in state. So, but you wouldn't want to save that as part of the item, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so probably extract out the bits you need, whatever is going to go into the database, and then just save those fields.
Okay.
Yep. But otherwise, it looks really good. So you're what's the state? Has it? I guess you're still waiting for a mentor approval, or?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can pop in and look at that. Look at that today.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Cool. And can you just can we see the Firebase console and just prove to us that it made it in there?
Sure can.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question about state. So that state is not component specific, that's app wide.
That's
No.
component specific.
Mm-hmm.
It is, okay.
Yeah, because it's this dot state. So this refers to the instance of the component.
Right. Oh, so if that were a functional component, then it would be app wide, no matter where the functional component was?
No.
No.
No, anytime you have state, it's local to that component. The only time you have something that's app wide is if it's state at the very top of the very top component.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have state within your app component, then that can get passed down via props to all of the other child components. Or if you had some sort of context that was sharing state across components without having to pass them down through props.
Okay.
But calling this dot state or using the use state hook keeps state local just to that component.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
There it is. All right, cool. I like Spangle as a token.
Spangle, yeah.
That was all me.
Oh yeah, nice.
It's a small obsession I have.
I'm not going to ask what it means. So
It really doesn't mean anything, but it's a really great band.
okay, Spangle. That's awesome. Miles, for you, anything interesting about what you learned this week?
Oh man, all of this was a learning experience, mainly because I've never done anything like this so far. So I think for me this week, first off, I had the worst allergies this week. So it was like all of this week has been quite a fog, but I think I just learned so much, like getting the form to work, starting to kind of understand how states work is one thing I really came across this week.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And then like components, like getting a better understanding of how components work.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thanks for that. That's exciting. The app is like once we get those two things merged, we're in a pretty good place. You can create a list, you can add an item. That's like starting to actually have a shopping list that we can interact with. So that's cool. So it's an even numbered week. So we're going to do a retrospective. I kind of explained it in the channel, but yeah, this is something, like Steve and my teams at, at work, we do these every couple of weeks, and they typically are, just kind of like looking back at sort of what went well, what you want to keep doing, what things you might want to improve over the next couple of weeks until you do the next retrospective or going forward. So I saw some people had filled stuff out on the board, which is great. But it doesn't look like everybody has cards on there. So we'll take a few minutes just to have folks add a few more cards. So here, I'll share my screen. In case you didn't find the thing, I'll post a link to the board. All right, so there's the board in chat. Here's what it looks like so far. I went ahead and came up with a random order for the board. So as people add cards in, I'll be rearranging the cards, putting them in that order. But feel free to go ahead now, and if you haven't already added your thoughts to this, go ahead and do that, and then we will take some time to talk through each column. Any questions about that? Is that clear enough? All right. And when you're done, maybe just put done in the chat, and then that way I can know we're ready to talk.
Excuse me. Hmm. Notice something interesting. I have the app running locally. So when I check out localhost, I have a token already in play. But when I launched the app from production, there was no token there.
Yeah.
And tokens in both browsers are totally different.
Mhm.
That's an interesting thing I have to look into.
Do you have any ideas why?
It might. My guess it's probably some mechanically no, but it might be like some sort of security thing.
If you open up the applications tab in the dev tools,
Yeah.
you might have a better idea that way.
Application, local storage. Aha. So it's per URL per host. Nice.
Yeah, so it's definitely a security thing. It's just like cookies. Like you wouldn't want, information from one site getting shared with another one unless you kind of give it explicit permission. But local host or local storage is even more restrictive than that. You can't share across two different host names.
Nice. Okay.
I made the mistake of reloading the page that had the random order in it. So I'm not actually sure where Elise falls. But we'll make it consistent across the columns anyway.
Inside of a company, like the third column, is that stuff that just people sort of keep in mind going forward, or is it to organizations like make it more official?
Good question. Steve, how does your team do that?
Sorry, I was just wrapping up my last card. What was the question?
So that third column, things that we could have gone better. I was wondering if those are items that people on the team just sort of keep in mind for themselves, or do companies make them official? It's probably some mix, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a mix. At least at Zapier, I think they're pretty local to your team, and then as teams kind of talk with one another and talk about the pains and problems that they're facing, and kind of share their experiences with similar problems or similar pains, then those things that you figure out to improve within your team could bubble up, more of into a company level.
Mm-hmm. How do they address the second column with the same thing in mind?
What should we keep doing?
Yeah.
I think it's typically it starts off really localized to your team, and then if your team finds that you're having great success in a particular area or a particular process that you've implemented, then if it's a good company, then there'll be a means for you to kind of bring that to the attention of everybody else and suggest an improvement, across the company.
Yeah, so my team, the way we handle that third column anyway is well, it's actually the second and the third column. What we do is we kind of get through talking about all the cards, and then we do a voting session where everyone gets, a certain number of votes, kind of depends on how many cards there are, usually 3 to 5 votes. And you go through and you vote on things, and we take the top couple of vote getters out of that and we make action items out of them. And those are usually assigned to a person. So, it might be the product manager, or maybe, the developer had an idea for some improvement to, something that we do, whatever. So, but we go through a little bit of a process of culling down all the ideas to the ones that we think are highest impact. And then we actually do assign them to people and follow up the next time and see if they were done. So.
Yeah, and that third column can be anything, right? It can be PRs are taking too long to get approved. It could be our deployments are going too slow, or the staging environment's totally, screwed up and we have to do something about that. And assigning someone to it could just be as simple as reaching out to the infrastructure team and figuring out what's going on with staging, or figuring out what's going on with deployments. So it can be that third column is pretty open as far as anything that might be preventing you or your team from doing their work quickly and efficiently.
All right. I think, Elise, I don't see a card for you in appreciations, but I'm going to trust that you are in the middle of writing one. We might get started.
I am.
Okay. Cool. So let's give you 30 seconds, I guess, to kind of wrap that up or whatever, and then we'll start. But. So in past cohorts, sometimes we'll take one of the items out of that third column and kind of agree on, as a group, just agree to kind of hold that going forward. If there's something there that, really let's see. I don't know. If there was something that was kind of more actionable or concrete, we might, we could kind of assign it to somebody and have them kind of report back to the channel when it's done or something. But we'll see what things come up. All right, cool. So I think we have everybody's cards, and they're all in order, so it's all nice and tidy. And I did kind of want myself to go first, just to kind of set the tone for how these go. But I think you all get the idea. So, but anyway, starting off with appreciation. So we'll go through everybody in appreciations, and then we'll start over and start from the top and go through the next column, the other column. So just wanted to just thank all of you, just tell you how much I appreciate all the energy you've put into Collab Lab the last 2 weeks. It's always fun. I know that you're kind of taking a risk, kind of even signing up for this thing, and just to see how you all have just dived in head first, and are just doing great work already. It's really, really fun to see. So super appreciate all that just time and attention that you're putting in towards it. And Scott in particular for jumping in and troubleshooting across pairs. That's I think that's really nice to see, like just that kind of engagement. I think you all are doing it to some extent. I've noticed Scott like jumping into threads and like trying to help troubleshoot those. So it's a nice behavior to witness. And then our mentors, you're doing a great job. Jay kind of filled in for Lisa at the last minute, so but he's just jumped in and like it's like he was going to be a mentor all along, right? So he's done a great job, I thought, and just really integrated with the group and making great contributions. So yeah, appreciate all that. Thanks everybody. Elise.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I just need to kind of read where I was going with the card.
Yeah. So your appreciations card.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So for my appreciation card, I really just wanted to give an all around appreciation. I've learned so much literally from everyone. And I just wanted to say thank you for it being extremely easy to ask questions, because I've always had an issue with that. And being in this group makes it very easy to do so.
Nice.
And yeah.
Cool. Sarah? Oh, you're muted.
Okay. So thank you, Scott, for jumping in and helping everybody. I've noticed like week 1, he helped Miles with stuff, and it was really nice. And then Miles is just very enthusiastic and willing to learn and try new things. And then everyone created like a really welcoming and encouraging environment on the Slack and just meeting on Zoom. And then our group met on Wednesday and it was the same thing. And then just all the mentors for their availability, that it's very open availability, and just their time that they're taking out to do this.
Nice.
So the mentors for sure, everybody's like way more available than I would have expected. Everybody jumps in as soon as there's any action in the channel at all. At least I've really noticed how, it's I can hear that you're like stressed in some points, but you'd like, I don't know, there's like some sort of a lightheartedness, or like, all right, it's good, just keep going. I really appreciate that. And Sarah, I noticed in the PR comments, you were able to, there's directness in what you put in there that I really appreciated. So it's like you said what you wanted to say, and it didn't feel judgy at all, which is, I'm less good at that. So I noticed that. And Steve and Jason, whenever we had problems with either the hook or the form, you gave us hints, but didn't give us the answers. So I personally just really like having a struggle for that info. So he's like pointed in the right direction, but didn't tell us about the rocks.
Nice. Steve.
Yeah, for me, it was all 4 of you, Miles, Scott, Elise, and Sarah, for so much diving into hard topics that were oftentimes new, and just keeping that enthusiasm, communicating like a seasoned team, helping each other out, amazing, and just defaulting to trust, being vulnerable with things you don't know, and then other people coming in and helping out and giving those answers. It was a great start to the cohort. Scott was mentioned in particular for actively lending a hand wherever you could. Andrew for jumping in when Jay or I were unavailable, and Jay for being a great co-mentor to work with.
Nice. All right, Miles, you're up.
Sorry, having problems unmuting myself. So I want to thank everyone for being so patient with me. Like when I signed up for this, I knew it was going to be a steep learning curve because I only really got through the first part of boot camp. So I knew that any opportunity I signed up for, I was going to have to really push myself to learn from everybody involved. And I know for a lot of people, like I know having been in that experience on the opposite end, sometimes you can feel like it's a stress and it's a strain having to pull somebody along. So I want to thank everybody for being so like accommodating and so willing to like teach me. Because I haven't always had that experience when it came to learning to code. I think my first experience was really kind of hard, and I gave up for a long time. So it means a lot to me that this is a very safe space to come to. Um, so I also want to thank Elise this week for really explaining things. Like she broke things down to me on a level like we came from from the same boot camp, so we kind of knew that like, you know, where each other was like struggling having been part of this boot camp. So I really want to thank her for stepping up and explaining things to me a little more than most people might in general. And this week I was really under the weather, so I want to thank her for, you know, being patient with me.
Nice.
And by extension everybody else, because I can tell like there are times where like things needed to be done and I just was struggling to get out of bed. So I want to thank everybody. I have like an autoimmune disorder, so little things kind of spiral into big things and it gets hard to like get going and get myself together. But it was really nice to know that like, you know, nobody was like judgy or nobody was saying like, what's wrong with you? How come you can't keep up? Like, this just isn't for you, or similar things that I experienced like at boot camp. Like everybody always comes with something that helps me learn or helps me like feel like I'm part of the group. And that's really important to me.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks for all that. All right. So what went well? What should we keep doing? I mean, from my perspective, the whole team's off to a great start. You're being noisy in the channel. You're communicating a lot. You seem to be working well together and everything. That's really good. I've loved seeing us use draft PRs. I think that's a really nice practice. It's a nice. We're not going to accidentally merge anything, but it's like also like it's just a nice to be able to kind of have the discussions in with the code. I've loved seeing just the sharing of learning resources. Just both in the channel and in the learning together. I mean, I love actually like kind of sharing, you know, you're talking about a topic and you find something that's useful, share it to the team, but then sharing it around to the rest of the Slack team is great too. And then the Slack status, Steve, there was one morning where it was like, well, your morning, my afternoon, where it was like dadding or something was on your like it was green, but it was like clear that like you weren't fully paying attention to it. Like, so it's actually really nice. It's pretty helpful to have that Slack status set. I was just installing Clockwise on my calendar to kind of maybe on my Collab Lab calendar, so I can have that auto update for me a little bit. So, but yeah, so a lot of things went well from my perspective. So really good. And Elise.
Okay, so I would say the feedback from the code review was extremely helpful. It definitely helped when you kind of gloss over something that is actually really important. So like a third pair of eyes in a sense, or four at this point. But also starting early in the week, I feel like that's helped get all the confusion out, and then of course still leave time to overthink things, because I clearly have a tendency to do so. And our mini group meeting on Wednesday was really helpful to kind of see where I might have been overthinking once again, like to get feedback from the other team and see what they were doing was nice.
Cool. Sarah.
I know starting to work early in the week helped me a lot this week, and then feel like you were on track and not behind, and then just asking questions when we got stuck. I know Scott and I were like typing up to ask a question and trying to explain what we were doing, and then it was like, oh, when we like answered it ourselves, like, oh, this is what we didn't do, and like that was like a good moment, I guess, too. It's like, oh, if we just stop and think of what we're trying to do and we were overthinking some stuff too. And then I liked there's problem solving going back and forth in between, like with the whole group in Slack. And I thought that was good because then it helps me like learn what they're doing too. So then when I'm reviewing it, I have a better understanding and stuff. And then just the Slack itself seemed more organized this week, keeping comments on related threads, because I think when you're on Slack, you're used to having multiple channels and that's how stuff gets cleaned up, but we're on like one channel, so we have to keep it on the threads. So.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, the communication in Slack is really important because, it's like even if everything is okay and things are going smoothly, at least with me, it's like if I don't hear that communication, I just start defaulting to everybody's mad at me. So it's just good to have that constant, like, we're all good. This is what's going on. Yay.
Yeah, for me, keep up the stellar communication. Like mentioned a couple times already, but that thread where you all got together, helped each other out, and figured out where things were coming loose and how to get back on track. That was amazing. It was amazing to see after 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks. So yeah, keep up that communication, keep up the draft PRs, getting them open early. It's so much easier for mentors to help you out. And like you said, it's easier to just get those ideas out earlier. You get the base down, and then you can not necessarily try a crazy idea, but try your stretch goal or try something novel that might be cool and help you learn. And then, loved seeing all the questions pop up early and often in the channel. Like more of that. Great.
Nice. All right. And Miles.
I really enjoyed having the meeting on Wednesday with the other team because it really made me feel like I was part of a larger team, and it kind of helped me put what we were working on in focus. I got to really see like where what I'm working on touches what they're working on. And I think that kind of helped me understand a lot more of what I was trying to get done.
That's great. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Other cohorts have done that maybe a couple times, but it's really nice that y'all are already just like kind of defaulting to, let's communicate, make sure we're on the same page about things. Very cool. All right. So then what could have done better? We've kind of mentioned this already, but, and it's super common. I mean, everybody does this kind of at all levels, right? Like, and I understand just to overthink things or kind of overcomplicate things. But I think it takes a few weeks to kind of get into to realize that like you're only really supposed to do what's on the card, and that's like it'll all come together over time. But you kind of get in there. It's like, well, there must be more to it, right? Like, but really like what we're trying to learn here is how to work together as a team. It's not as much about the technical work. Like we're doing technical work to do it, but to kind of have that experience. But just like, again, like the simplest thing you can do to satisfy the AC is almost always what's really kind of indicated by any of the cards. So, if you think you might be starting to go down that road, it's a great point just to kind of like bounce ideas off somebody else. I mean, your team's working so well together that just bouncing it off somebody else among the developers is great, or and just say like, is this actually needed, or could we actually do this thing? It seems really simple and get it done. So, but yeah, that's the only thing I kind of wanted to comment
on. Okay, so can I just say that the flow, this is random, but the flow of things is different because usually when you get called on in class, it's by last name. So I've never experienced a second before. This is kind of exciting. But just to kind of reiterate what Andrew said, overthinking things, that definitely need to tone that down a bit for my personal sake. And just kind of taking more notes on what I do when I do deep dives so I can go back. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
All right, cool. Sarah.
I think I just need to spend more time learning, so a deeper understanding of the solutions that we come up with, and not just like, oh, that works, like, okay, move on. Like, and then I think doing that will also help me give better feedback on like other people's PRs. So like trying to understand how theirs is working and like why and all that.
So in terms of PR comments, Steve said in his demo or his presentation last week, it's like you kind of default to approval. And so just for me, it's like trying to find that line between defaulting for approval and still sort of like pushing on items that are bothering me. And just trying to find that balance, or knowing where that balance is. Like, when do you not approve based on something? When do you just let it go and approve? And being able to say it straightforwardly, which is why I noticed Sarah's PR comments and would like them. She was able to do that in a way that I wasn't able to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a place where asking questions is maybe a good approach too. If it's something like there's a chance that the way they're doing it is fine, but you're a little uncomfortable with it, or something, helping them teach you about what the approach is might help them clarify. Like as they're explaining it to you, it might be like, oh wait, I missed this thing, or that there is a better way to do that. At the same time, you may be like, oh, actually what they're doing is totally fine. I just didn't quite have the context for it. So yeah, I think that's a nice place to go anytime you're kind of like, oh, what do I do here? Is just ask a question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say too, as far as defaulting to approve, like I'll just go ahead and approve unless you see something that you're like, oh, this will totally break production or something like that. If you see something that's going to throw everything into a crazy state, then like that's when I say, no, we have to make changes. Otherwise, you can even leave in a comment, say like, well, this would be a blocker for me, or this is a red flag. Whether, like Andrew's saying, I don't understand why you chose this, and you ask a question, or you just say, I'll default to approve, or I'll approve this PR but you really need to come back and address this thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. For me, I was going to say, I think when I went through these, it was basically all saying the same thing of just communicating. The draft PRs were slower the first week, but better the second week. So that was a great improvement, and just keep asking more questions. We're asking a lot of questions out there. I'd say that's always a thing that can improve. And then especially asking questions about how you're going to go about your solution, because it's a great practice to develop for the real world. You'll be collaborating with people outside of your engineering team that are stakeholders to the work you're doing. So being able to ask questions from a product owner, a product manager, from an engineering manager, or some other business stakeholder, those are great skills to develop.
Mm-hmm. Yep, second all that. And Miles?
All right, mine is along the same lines as Sarah. Like I feel like I need to study up on things a little bit more. I feel like I don't contribute as much as everybody else. So I think like finding a way to improve on what I'm studying and like the times that I'm not working will help me be able to contribute a lot more.
All right, cool, thanks. Is there anything, I mean, sounds like a couple people had things for themselves that they want to work on over the next couple of weeks. Is there any themes or anything as a group that we want to agree on?
I saw a theme between Andrew and Steve's comments. So that overthinking issue, and then if you scroll down to the third item in Steve's list, so I see this connected. It's like overthinking things. So you're kind of working too much on your own. But then how do you know, like in terms of especially designers, product owners, managers, that kind of stuff, like how do you know who you're asking, like, especially because we're learning, we don't actually have those roles, but like, who do you know, how do you know what to ask? And I don't know if like there's some sort of connection there, but I can't quite
Mhm.
verbalize. But it
Well,
seems like
I think
having
you're right.
Yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
you know, like if you, sometimes you can kind of tell like if you start to be kind of questioning, like, is this really needed or something, right? Like that's a good point to ask a mentor, because, the mentors, remember, are kind of playing two roles. So it's sort of like that senior developer role. So, somebody you can go to for technical advice, how should I approach this, that kind of thing. And then the product owner role as well. So kind of wearing multiple hats. The product owner really, in this case, is clarifying, what's the state we're trying to get the app to with this story. So either of those things, if it's like, is there a technical solution that's more elegant? Do I have to have all this, like, why do I have so much code? Like that kind of thing. Or if it's, is this doing the thing that it needs to do? Like either of those questions are easily answered by the mentors. So, but I think you're right. Like it's like kind of the solve for overthinking is to talk to people about it. Like, have the discussions.
One thing I noticed is that more than once, like starting early was mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of agree with this. And I think that's also why I said I want to be able to study more a little bit. I think the first week I kind of just waited until we started working. Whereas like this week, Elise and I started really early. So I think that's something I noticed that was a theme, was like, maybe like with Sarah, she also mentioned studying. So I think maybe creating time before everything starts to study seems like something. And maybe like even just dropping like small bits of like, hey, I'm looking this up for this week early in the chat, like on Sunday, would be something that like I want to push myself to.
Yeah, I love that. I think
Yeah.
that's like go ahead. Sarah.
Oh, I agree with that, because that's what I was thinking, because the beginning of the week is kind of busy on solving our problem, but then it gets slower at the end of the week when we're waiting to review pull like requests and stuff. So like Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, we can start looking at the next issues and starting to like understand and try and figure out, and then use that time to study. That's what I was gonna try and do.
I
Yeah,
agree with that. Like, I definitely agree with that. Like, I think like maybe just keeping a constant like pace at going at something, rather than how like I've been doing it like Sunday, I kind of just like leave just this meeting on my plate and that's it. I think maybe adding more so that I'm just constantly going, like Sarah said, is a good idea.
Yeah. I like that idea. And it sounds like there's a couple things there, because there's sort of the thing that you're about to do for the coming week. So maybe setting some time aside after the meeting to study up on a couple of topics prior to the first pairing session. But then maybe even some prep before you come into this meeting of like, well, what's the next thing we might be working on? And are there topics that I could kind of brush up on ahead of time or something? Yeah, I think it's all great. And I think the key to this thing is really, it is starting early in the week. Like, we'll break off in a minute and, kind of go over the next cards that we're working on, getting the branch set up, getting the draft PR up and ready. So that stuff's just kind of out of the way, clarifying all the requirements, making sure you understand it all right off the bat. So, because we're in the meeting with you, like when we break out in those breakout rooms, but then, it's a little more asynchronous if it happens during the week, right? So it might take longer to get your questions answered.
And I would add to that too, as far as like studying, if you find that you're just digging and trying to find the answers and not coming up with anything, like give yourself a time box where you say, if I don't get my answer within this amount of time, throw it out there. If you have a Firebase question, Jason's used a ton of Firebase and he can probably answer your question in a fraction of the time, right? Or at least point you to the right document, because there is a deluge of information out there and it can be challenging to find the answers. So your mentors are here to help speed that along and like short circuit the amount of time it takes for you to learn what you need to learn.
Yeah, I don't know what the rule of thumb is exactly with, like, there's different versions of it, but basically if you are asking questions too soon, you're sort of wasting other people's time. But if you're waiting too long to ask the questions, you're wasting your own time, and your own time is valuable too, right? So some people say 15 minutes, some people say 30 minutes or something, but it's a lot shorter than you might think. Like your time is valuable, so don't hesitate to ask questions. You know, if you've kind of done a little bit of searching and you're just stumped, there's no reason why you can't just throw a question in the channel.
Yeah, it's like the difference of how do I write a React component versus why is this React component like in an infinite loop or something like that, right? Like you can being able to, you put that initial research in there, and then you can ask a really targeted, good question rather than something that's just like, I didn't look this up. Yeah.
Cool, good stuff, everybody. Love it. I feel like we're at work in a good way. All right, so I think this one's in review, right? Is that true?
I think that's ready for mentor review.
Mentor review, okay. So the next two issues that we have coming up. So as a user, I want to join an existing shopping list so I can share a shopping list with someone. Okay, so we know that a list is really just a token saved to local storage. But we want to make it so that a user can enter an existing token. So like say, you have a token, you have a list, and you want, your partner or roommate or somebody to be able to share the shopping list with you. So you want them to be able to enter the same token in, and then you'll share access to the list. So when the user does not already have a token in local storage, the onboarding home screen, they can create the new token, or they can enter an existing token, right? Entering the token, hitting submit, saves the token in local storage, giving them control of the list. On submit, show an error if the token does not exist, and that means exist in the database. So if it's, if they try to manually enter a token and it's not something that's in the database anywhere, it should surface that, like say there's no, there's no such list, no such token. If they get that error message, then they should be allowed to either try entering a token again or just to create a new list. So that's one story. And then the other one is, as a user, I want to be alerted when I'm entering an item that is the same as something already on my list, so I can avoid duplicate items. So, so on the add item screen, you want to show an error message if the user tries to submit a new item that has the exact name as an existing item. That's sort of level one. Level two is you want to show an error message if the user tries to submit a new item that has the same name as an existing item, where some of the kind of minor differences have been normalized. So capitalization, if they have a dash in one of the names but a space in the other, those kinds of things should be sort of stripped out, and you compare without those things. So, in other words, like if it's close, if it's very close, it's very likely to be the same thing. You also want to show an error message. But importantly, the user's original input should be what's saved to the database. So if they enter a name of something, we don't want to strip we don't want to like all lowercase and strip out the punctuation and save that to the database. Like the user is going to expect to see the thing that they typed as the thing that's on the list. So that came up in a previous cohort. So those are the two issues. The pairs for this week are Sarah and Elise, and Miles and Scott. Does anybody have a preference which one they work on?
I'm particularly drawn to 5, but I looked at these earlier and they both sound pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have a preference? I see Sarah shaking her head. I can't see the other two. So
I don't have a preference. I'm open.
Okay. So Scott, you said you were more interested in 5. So Sarah and Elise, are you okay with taking 6? Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. I guess so.
Suppose. Thanks for noticing. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Wait, come on, man. All right, cool. And then oh, okay, cool. Steve, you want to rock, paper, scissors for these, or do you have a preference?
Sure. No. Yeah. No preference.
Okay. I will make
I want
breakout
to see rock,
rooms.
paper, scissors.
No, anyway. It's a little hard with the lag, you know. All right, so let's see. Sarah.
All I can see is your screen, Andrew. I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be right now or not.
Okay, I'm making breakout rooms.
Okay.
So, Elise and Sarah, I'm gonna send you off with Steve, and then Miles and Scott. I will join you once you're all in the rooms. So, you have the links. See you over there. All right. Cool.
Hello. I'll be right back. I have to go to the bathroom really bad.
Okay, no worries.
I'll be right back.
And with that, I will stop recording.